First, the Boston Globe's Dan Shaughnessy put it best. Back in June, he wrote, "It's doubtful Boston will enjoy hosting." That's because there was an endless stream of negative stories. There was a security funding crisis, a threat by Foxborough to withdraw stadium entertainment licenses over security issues, police and emergency staffing worries, finger pointing at Robert Kraft, the Summer Street closure controversy, late night liquor licensing concerns, a conflict with Sail Boston, fan viewing party restrictions, predictions of transportation failures. To its credit, the Boston Globe published several retrospectives acknowledging that the games were, quote, a resounding success. And Dan Shaughnessy admitted his initial column was misguided, pointing to the hugely positive response to the Tartan Army and Viking Row. All right, Lila, I am not going to start with you. I have to say, I was one of these people who just assumed, bought it hook, line, and sinker that this was going to be a disaster. I made sure I was not in town for any of the local Boston games, World Cup soccer in Foxborough, and of course, I got out of town for Sail Boston. Both of those things were a mistake. I did run into the Tartan Army one day, and I was just delighted. I mean, I couldn't have had more fun. One of the guys was trying to name all 51 United States, and I was helping him guess which ones he didn't have already, which was amazing to me. But there was, Dan, I'll start with you, just a tremendous amount of doomsday reporting. I mean, there was no prediction at all about how much fun it would be, how engaging it would be, how enthusiastic, not just Bostonians, but basically the entire our country was over watching this on television. It was a media just bonanza.
I definitely agree with you, Emily, that I believed all the predictions and thought it would be a disaster. I mean, it was right down to the wire with Mayor Wu and the MBTA
Yeah.
over whether a connection um, to the commuter rail at South Station was going to be allowed to proceed smoothly. And then, of course, there was Bob Kraft's fight with the Foxborough
Yeah.
Select Board at the last minute. It seemed to go very, very smoothly. And I would say that as somebody who was deeply opposed to the Olympics coming to Boston, I'm now wondering if maybe we ought to have the Olympics come
Good
to
point. I
Boston.
was deeply in favor of that. You know, Scott, it's really hard for the news media to write about things that haven't happened when they have a positive outcome. So I do have some sympathy there.
Sure.
It's also sort of what we do, which is focus on everything that could go wrong and actually lay it out just so everybody has an idea of everything that could go wrong.
Sure.
But in this case, basically none of that came true, including violence or incidents of any sort. There was, even with all the drinking that went on, there were very few arrests, very few trouble spots.
Yeah, it's really it was a really pleasant surprise. And I was skeptical, and I thought the stories were good. I mean, there were certainly things you'd want to look at, and FIFA has a really terrible reputation. It's a very corrupt organization. So I was wondering, how is this going to go? And are they just going to start stiffing, city governments, not paying them? And that may emerge at some point. They may, who knows what will happen on the back end. But it was a real turned out. I mean, going into Boston, doing in downtown, there was a really festive atmosphere that I haven't I ever seen in years, maybe other than like a championship parade.
Yeah.
And it was a real boon for restaurants, retailers that have been really hard hit. Businesses have moved out of a lot of businesses moved out of downtown Boston, and here was this steady stream of people, and it was just fun. So I think you can't always predict things. I do think maybe it would have been good for somebody to look at it in a more contrarian viewpoint, in terms of maybe this isn't such a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Unlike the Olympics, you didn't have to build a new stadium. I mean, really all you have to do is like get people on a train and move people around.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was surprised. I'm even shocked, I guess, because
Yeah, exactly. Shocked.
yeah, yeah, that it went off so well, and that Boston felt a little festive, for a change.
So Lila, of course, I didn't want to put you on the defensive about this
That's
because
okay.
a lot of the a lot of the reporting that I'm referencing did come from the Boston Globe. But I have to say, I was incredibly impressed with two or three articles that the Globe wrote recently, basically acknowledging that their predictions were largely wrong. I mean, beyond Dan Kennedy, I
Yep.
mean, Dan Shaughnessy, there were, articles that were written by news reporters that are saying, yeah, actually, it was pretty darn smooth.
Well, I think as you and Scott noted, journalists are not in the prediction business. So we're reporting on what is happening as it's happening. And with print and digital, there's always a tiny bit of element of yesterday's news tomorrow. So what was happening at the time is that Boston was not prepared in advance, was not as prepared as Philadelphia. There were other concerns. It was more than just people moving. They had to rip out all the turf at Gillette Stadium and replace it with grass. And then how do you deal with keeping grass alive and maintained between games? And there was a lot to look at, but it did come together at the last minute. And if there's one thing that journalists are good at, I mean, our job is not to give PR to FIFA and say, everything's going to be great, just you wait and see. But our job is to say, hey, we got it wrong before, and this is how it really did turn
Yeah.
out. And beyond the Tartan Army, you've got this great Cape Verdean presence, and the Haitian community in Boston,
Yeah.
one of the largest in the world, is here even when FIFA is not. And it's good to see that we were reporting on that. Down in Rhode Island, you may note that our coverage was not doom and gloom. Um,
Mhm.
that's because Rhode Island was is a lot smaller, but had done more advanced preparation than Boston for the smaller number of people that were here. The Providence fan zone was great, went off without a hitch. Central Falls, which is just 1 square mile, but it's a majority Latino community, had watch parties all the time and parades and salsa dancing. There was a lot of enthusiasm. And I think the reason it was so different in Rhode Island is that you've got larger communities of people who care about soccer. I would guess that most of the people on Beacon Hill, beyond getting their kids to their weekend soccer games, aren't really soccer fanatics.
Who,
We don't
me?
have,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
we don't have the soccer hooligans. It's
Yeah, yeah,
not part
exactly.
of Boston culture. So we were bracing ourselves for a disaster. But soccer fans know how big the World Cup is, and they were looking forward to it, and they were looking
Yeah.
out for the positive things.
Well, I just
Well,
want to restate the media
let
is
me,
not
let,
good at acknowledging its mistakes, so I was happy to see
just one final thought here before we get all too warm and fuzzy about this
you.
is that there has been reporting by the press, and they're doing a good job with this, that this ended up costing taxpayers more than came in. And FIFA didn't kick in a nickel to any of this.
How do we know that,
They
Dan? I haven't seen that. I was going to say that the finances aren't really in yet. How do we know
No,
that?
the we don't know for a fact whether this is going to have been an additional burden on the taxpayer. We don't know that yet, but we do know that FIFA paid nothing, and that's just absolutely outrageous.